It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. The perfect product launch. It's the goal for every brand marketer. High heat, fast sellout, and fans posting recipes like trophies. What do Sydney Sweeney's soap drop, Taylor Swift's tickets, and your next launch have in common? Well, they're not bought, they're bragged about. Fanfare turns your drop into a moment. Fanfare cues real fans, blocks bots, and builds launch experiences worth screenshotting. Want hype without the heartbreak? Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook with our proven success formula and make your next launch unforgettable at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, fanfare.io/playbook.
Non-English languages are ignored in almost all aspects of at least this society in the United States, affecting schools, healthcare, banking, health and fitness coaching, information about political candidates, purchasing decisions, you name it. So in other words, this is an enormous market that is underserved that you could be serving. And there is another reason that you will want to consider looking at serving additional languages, and that is the joy and fulfillment of the relationships that you will build.
Hey, it's Pat here. You're about to listen to something a little different on the show today. It's not our usual Friday format where I follow up on Wednesday's episode. Don't worry, those aren't going away forever. Just a little break to bring in something even more special, in my opinion, our Teaching Friday series, which we do with our SPI Pro members. We have an incredibly talented pool of people within SPI Pro, so we thought, why not give our pros the spotlight and teach you here on the podcast every once in a while. It's just one of the perks of being a part of Pro, in fact, is this possibility. With each episode, you get to hear a different pro teach you something special from their area of expertise. Without further ado, I'll let them take it away. Oh, and if you want to find out more about SPI Pro and be a part of it, you can go ahead and apply at spipro.com.
You're listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network, a show that's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later.
And now your guest host. She personally served breakfast to Madeleine Albright twice, and Truran.
Running a business means legal questions are inevitable. Is this contract or agreement solid? What can I do if a client won't pay me? Am I set up properly for taxes? Well, rather than trying to navigate all of this on your own or searching endlessly online, imagine having a law firm on your side without the high hourly rates. That's exactly what Legal Shield's small business plans offer. With Legal Shield, entrepreneurs get access to real legal support, contract reviews, collection letters, guidance on business formation, and even help handling IRS audits. Members can book consultations, upload documents through the app, and work with a provider law firm that understands small business laws in your state. You also get proactive help on tax and trademark questions so you can stay ahead of legal risks. And if a client delays payment, Legal Shield can send professional collection letters to help you recover what you're owed, all for a fraction of what traditional attorneys charge. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Hiring shouldn't be a hassle or a drain on your budget. Upwork is your one-stop shop to find, hire, and pay top freelance talent, saving you time and keeping costs in check all in one place. Companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and find more flexibility in the way that they staff key projects and initiatives by assessing a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web development, AI, design, administration support, marketing, and more. And I've personally used them myself and can vouch for them. Posting a job on Upwork is easy. With no cost to join, you can register, browse freelancer profiles, get help drafting a job post, or even book a consultation. From there, you connect with freelancers that get you and can easily hire them to take your business to the next level. Upwork makes the entire process easier, simpler, and more affordable with industry-low fees. Post a job today and hire tomorrow with Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com. Go there now.
Hello and welcome to the SPI podcast. My name is Truran, and I work with schools to take care of families who speak a language other than English. But if you are not someone who works in schools, I promise I have something for you today too. I will also have a gift for you at the end. Today, I will be talking to you about why considering how to expand your services to be accessible to other languages is important to you and your business or organization and your community, so that you can have greater impact and have more fun. So let's start with the why. It would be easy and natural to assume that someone else is serving other languages in your space. Surely someone else is creating websites in Arabic for Arabic-speaking businesses so that their Arabic-speaking customers can find out about them. Or surely someone is providing family photographer to Mandarin-speaking families or Vietnamese-speaking families. But I'm here today to ask you to question that assumption. All too often, these communities who speak other languages do go unserved. For example, for the CPAs out there, I know numerous Spanish-speaking adults who did their parents' taxes for them from a very young age because they didn't have access to someone who could help them with that process. I also know Spanish-speaking parents who want to invest for their child's college, but they don't even know where to start to navigate a financial system that is already so confusing, even if you are a fluent English speaker. I know this because I looked into this in the past week and found it to be incredibly confusing. And this is for Spanish, the most commonly spoken language in the United States other than English. So when speakers of other languages do get help, it is often very piecemeal. It is because they happen to know someone and trust someone to ask them for help, or that person knows them well enough to know that they need help to offer it. There tends to be not widespread solutions available to speakers of other languages. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 1 in 5 residents in the United States speaks a language other than English at home, which is up from 1 in 10 from 1980. So if you are a B2C business, then this is definitely applicable to you. But if you are a B2B business, this is also potentially applicable. So let's talk about the reasons why that might be. An MIT study that was published in 2022 said that immigrants are 80% more likely to start businesses of all sizes, small, medium, and large, than native-born Americans. And according to the Small Business Administration, immigrant business owners make up 23% of businesses without employees and 18% of those who do have employees. That's just in this country. And no, obviously some of those business owners will speak English, but the New American Economy says that 1 in 5 immigrant entrepreneurs has limited English proficiency, meaning they are much more comfortable speaking a language other than English. And some of those immigrant entrepreneurs don't speak English at all. I do want to point out that up to now, I've been speaking about just the United States. If we step back and look globally, the number of speakers of another language is astronomical, right? So we know that these numbers are large and we know that they matter. Non-English languages are ignored in almost all aspects of at least this society in the United States, affecting not only schools, who I work with, but also healthcare, banking, health and fitness coaching, information about political candidates, purchasing decisions, you name it. So in other words, this is an enormous market that is underserved that you could be serving. And on top of that, the communities that speak other languages are more vulnerable to business owners with less integrity and skimmers because they do have a shortage of people who are reaching out to them and communicating with them in a language that they understand. So in other words, society needs more business and organization leaders to consider outreach and service to other languages, not just as an afterthought, but with the whole funnel from A to Z in mind and the whole customer service model in mind. So far, we know that there are a lot of people in the US who are more comfortable speaking a language other than English, and we know that that number has been growing. And there is another reason that you will want to consider looking at serving additional languages, and that is the joy and fulfillment of the relationships that you will build. Relationships are so important in all phases of running a business. No matter what field or industry we work in, we've all heard this and understand this. Pat Flynn has talked for a long time about the importance of having real conversations with your customers to find out what their real pain points are. That's one of the reasons that I have loved Pat Flynn and have followed him for so long. So if we think about that already being an important point, and we think specifically about speakers of other languages in a society where there's another dominant language, such as English, those communities place even more value on relationships than we might because, one, they likely come from a culture that does place a lot of emphasis on relationships already. And because they are living in a different culture and a different system than the one that they are familiar with, they are constantly navigating systems that are unfamiliar to them within a culture that is unfamiliar to them in a different language. So it's a lot. If you think about yourself, think about a time when you found yourself navigating an unfamiliar system and how stressful and disorienting that might have been. Maybe it was a new insurance provider, or maybe it was a new computer. For me, my most recent experience navigating an unknown system was trying to figure out GarageBand to record and edit this episode. So if you think about that instance for yourself, how nice is it to have a guide to lead you through the process rather than stumbling through alone? And if you live in a country where you grew up, then that experience is occasional, but not constant. But if you are an immigrant in a new country, that is a defining experience of the first many years in that society. So just take a moment to imagine if you could be the guide for someone in that context and the fulfillment and joy that can come from watching their journey and knowing how you helped them. In these instances, if you think about your work, like me, if you were to serve multilingual people, to you, you were only doing the same thing that you do for all of your clients. But to them, you are doing something that no one else was. So the good news is, at this point, if you're thinking, well, I don't speak another language, you do not have to speak another language to serve speakers of that language. And that is where my expertise in helping schools becomes relevant to you, even if you work in another field, which if you're listening to this podcast, you probably do. So just for some context, I've helped schools that serve multiple languages, most of which are not spoken by a single staff member in the district. So you might also be asking yourself, why would I not just hire someone who speaks the language or another language? And I want to hold off on digging into that question for now because it is actually far more complex than is immediately obvious. But I just want to move on with the assumption for a minute that you don't speak all the languages of your community, and it would be difficult for you to hire employees who spoke all of the languages of your community. So if that's your position, then what do you do? So the first thing you need is an infrastructure. You need tools to help you communicate across language, and you need processes to help you and or your team access those tools. So if we take a step back, communication in today's age basically falls into 5 buckets, and you may or may not use all of these. So the first being face-to-face or in-person communication, the second being virtual, the third being on the phone, the fourth being documents or forms, and then the fifth one being digital communication such as emails or texts. So even if you use all 5 of these forms of communication in your work, you don't necessarily need 5 different tools because many of the resources I'm about to share pull double duty. So we're just going to break them down. Let's start with in-person or face-to-face communication. For this, I can't give one recommendation to you because this is going to be a local agency. This needs to be a physical service located near you that employs interpreters and translators, interpreters being people who interpret verbal communication on the fly, and translators being those that translate written communication. So you need a local agency, and you can find one simply by Googling interpreter agency or translation agency near me or the name of the place where you live, and you're going to most likely come up with more than one solution if you live in a metropolitan area. And when you look at those agencies, it's important to consider a few different things. One, of course, budget and what they charge by the hour usually. but also to ask about the number of languages that they have and what their availability is. So if they perform interpretation on a schedule that is different than what your working business hours are, then that would be important to know up front. And you also would be wise to ask about their time minimums, because even if a service maybe has the lowest hourly rate, if they have a 3-hour minimum, but you typically only need things that are half-hour long, then it wouldn't make sense for you to be paying for 3 hours when you really just need to be paying for a half hour, for example. Your local agencies often also employ translators. So those people can also help you with your documents and forms, any text that requires translation. So again, consider the budget, consider what languages that they have, and again, ask them if there are any minimums to, the number of words that you can submit, for example. So now let's talk about phone. We're going to skip virtual and we're going to come back to virtual in a minute. So let's talk about phone. Oftentimes, your local interpreter agencies will also offer telephonic interpretation. So that's an option for you. If you're already contracting with someone locally to provide face-to-face interpretation, why not keep it simple and also use them for your phone communications? Another option, though, if you do not work with someone in person, or if you want to just explore other options, there are services that I call big box telephonic interpreter services. And these are companies with hundreds and hundreds of employees whose sole job is phone interpretation, and an office might be based in one city, but they employ people remotely all across the country to answer the phone and translate a phone call for you. And so some examples of those are Language Line, Voyance, Lionbridge, and honestly, there are many others, so don't take those to be the only 3 that are available to you. I would also request when you reach out to a service to request that they give you a demonstration of what placing a call with an interpreter looks like, because you're going to want to choose something that is as easy and straightforward a process as possible, especially if you have a team where you are expecting numerous other people to be using the service as well. But the other thing that you will want to ask about before you commit to a telephonic interpreter service, if you have a team, is ask them how you can gather data about who is placing calls. So some services might take the name of the individual who's placing the call, which is like, great, that's the best that we could ask for. And other instances, they might set up pins for you, and you could give each individual a pin, or if your organization is very large, you could give each team a pin. And there might be other ways that other telephonic interpreter services use, but it's an important thing to ask for, because later when we talk about accountability, you have to have a way that works for you to gather data about who is placing calls if you are going to exercise any sort of accountability in this process at all. So now we're going to come back to those virtual communications. Anything that you might do over a Zoom or a Teams or a Google Hangout, there are different options. So oftentimes, again, those local agencies are going to have video remote capability, and you can go with them. Keep it simple. And those big box telephonic phone interpreter services will also offer video remote. They will call it VRI. So that is something to ask them about as well. So coming back again to documents and forms or text that you might need translated, I already mentioned that a local agency can do this for you. This does tend to be quite pricey. So if you are concerned about what your budget is, some other options are working with Freelancer on a platform like Upwork or Fiverr. And if you're saying to yourself, well, why wouldn't I just use Google Translate? A word on that, I will say I love Google Translate. I think Google Translate has done a lot for the multilingual space. And at the same time, if you are a business or organization and you care about your materials being actually comprehensible to the person receiving them, and you care about them being presented in a professional way, it's really important to have a human involved in that translation process. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a human do 100% of the translation. Another option would be to run the documents through Google Translate first, and then work out maybe a reduced rate with someone who is qualified, proficient, and or fluent in that language to then proofread the work that Google Translate did. This is a very important step. Just to give you an example, I was doing a translation of a school document that had the phrase early dismissal in it. And I proofread the Spanish translation because I'm qualified to do that. And it translated it just fine. So I had no suspicion that the other languages might translate it inaccurately. But I also was generating an Arabic translation and gave it to a native-speaking Arabic staff member to proofread. And she pointed out that it had translated early dismissal as kicked rudely out of school, which is not something we would be wanting to send home to families. And that's just a great illustration of why we can't place 100% of our trust in Google Translate when it is our service on the line and our reputation on the line and how we're treating others. Next, let's talk about emails and texts. And there are a few different options here as well. So if you are just sending individual emails and individual texts to individual clients on the fly, just as you do in an email thread, for example, Google Translate is a really great option there because you are doing it. These are one-offs. And so Google Translate is the best service I know of in order to make that happen. But I would recommend including in the language of the client a blurb that says something like, this email was translated using Google Translate. If there are any errors or if you are having trouble understanding something, please contact us in whatever way you want them to contact you, so that if something is confusing, they are like, oh, well, that's why. Let me get some clarification. On the other hand, if you were sending emails or texts as part of a broadcast, then I would recommend you ask your current provider, your current platform that you use to do this anyway. ChatGPT tells me that marketing platforms that already have this automatic translation available are MailChimp, HubSpot, Aweber, Sendinblue, and Mailjet. And one thing I would say there is if your provider already does provide this automatic translation service, I would really be picky about figuring out what that looks like on the user end and how to access that translation. And if your current provider does not provide automatic translation, I think it's worth asking them if that's something that they could do. Platforms are constantly innovating. They want to keep up in the space. And if you as a customer are telling them that this is important to you, I've encountered platforms that have an engineering team that are willing to respond to customer requests. If you are still thinking, well, why not just hire someone who speaks the language? I'll speak to that briefly because I see schools fall into this trap all the time, but I know it is not just schools. So when organizations hire for a language, it is really important to be very intentional in how you do it. Oftentimes the thinking is simply, well, I hire for the language and then I'm done. But what you'll want to do is to design this position that you're hiring very intentionally around the language use, because viewing the language as a bonus on top of whatever you are hiring them for presents all sorts of problems. And so if they are doing a lot of mental work about how to outreach to a particular cultural community and they are doing translation work and everyone is going to them when they need help serving a particular client, for example, and they're doing all of that on top of a full-time job, it's simply a recipe for burnout. It's a way to lose people that are incredibly valuable to you. It's also less effective than it could be. It's a huge missed opportunity when all of that gets put on the shoulders of one or two people instead of being integrated into all the systems of the organizations. And ultimately, it just doesn't reflect well on the organization. It's just not a good look. If you do hire, again, you'll want to design the position intentionally. You will also want to have a process for screening new hires' language proficiency. When people say, I speak Spanish, that can mean all sorts of things, and you want to know it means specifically that they are capable of having conversations or translating documents with your industry language to the level of professionalism that you expect. Well, a best practice I should mention is that if this is something they are doing on top of a full-time job, you will want to compensate them accordingly. So I said that your infrastructure are your tools and your processes, and we covered tools, but you'll also want processes by which the people on your team, if you have a team, will access those tools. So first you need to think about who needs to be able to access these resources. And if that is more than just you, you want to think through, do you want anyone in your organization to just be able to book an interpreter, which means you're going to get billed for that interpreter? Or do you want to have a gatekeeper where someone places a request and that gatekeeper looks at it and they are the only person that puts through the request to your agency, for example? So then that brings me to my favorite part in this process. Once you have your infrastructure, you have to get people to actually use it. And again, this is the part that I love the most. It is also the hardest part of the process, and it is the most gratifying nut to crack. This part, if you do have bilingual staff members, becomes a little bit trickier because even if you have trained all of your staff members on how to use multilingual tools, how to request a translation, how to call a client with an interpreter on the phone, and you've set that expectation to them, what is most likely going to happen is an employee is going to say, well, Jessica speaks Spanish. I'll just ask Jessica to do it. And then all of your system kind of falls apart and all of that still gets funneled onto that one person, which creates problems for your clients and creates problems for your team. So here are the keys to doing this successfully. The first is to gather feedback or to gather voices and then respond to what people are saying. This becomes really important to do both for your staff and for your clients. The next thing you want to do is implement training that is effective. And effective is the key word here. You want to come out of the gate with your training being really effective. You do not want to lead with trial and error, lackluster trainings, because the more trainings people sit through, if it is not meaningful and if it did not then result in action or a change in the culture or the change in the way people do things, the next training they sit in, they will take less seriously, they will engage in less, and even if you have a super duper training, it will be sabotaged by past ineffective efforts. And then thirdly, you will want what I like to call a collaborative accountability cycle. So when you train your leaders, you're going to pick at least 5 dates throughout your year to have check-ins that are dedicated exclusively to this topic. Is our team using the tools available to them to serve clients who speak other languages? So if you're like, wow, that is too much, that is a lot, I will say that the ease of implementing this is going to depend greatly on the size of your organization and what you specifically do. It is going to be very straightforward for some to implement, although it will still take making it a priority. And for others, it can be a lot in the beginning, which is why I have a full-time job dedicated to this. But over time, as organizations create rhythms to the work out kinks that happen more frequently in the beginning, and build a staff culture where this is just a thing that we do, then those systems start to run themselves. Reaching speakers of other languages is an incredible opportunity for your business to serve the community and have greater impact. We know this at this point. And it is also a recipe for greater joy and fun at work. The first time one of the teachers that I was working with used an interpreter to talk with a family, she made a point of finding me afterwards and said, that was one of the coolest experiences of my life. If you are listening to this, then I have a special gift for you. I am giving free infrastructure building sessions to listeners of the SPI podcast through March of 2024. So what that means is we spend an hour together online. You bring your expertise about your business. I bring my expertise about multilingual communication, and together we will craft a blueprint about what are the best tools and processes for you and your business or organization to expand your impact to speakers of other languages. And to schedule your session, just go to togetherlanguage.com/SPI. And if you are interested in learning more for free, another place you can go is togetherlanguage.com/free-stuff. My blog is also at togetherlanguage.com, and please also feel free to email me directly for any reason at all. My email is Anne, A-N-N-E, at togetherlanguage.com. Thank you to Pat Flynn and the SPI team. You have been extremely instrumental to me in my own journey as an entrepreneur, and I very much hope that I was able to pay it forward to someone else today.
Thank you so much for listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast at smartpassiveincome.com. I'm your host, Pat Flynn. Sound editing by Duncan Brown. Our senior producer is David Grabowski, and our executive producer is Matt Gartland. The Smart Passive Income podcast is a production of SPI Media and a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Catch you next week. I get it. You want to grow your business, but selling at scale feels overwhelming. You're drowning in complicated funnels, creating different lead magnets, or constantly posting on social media. And that gets exhausting fast, especially when you're trying to sell to hundreds or thousands of people. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? A score app quiz or assessment asks your audience key questions and gives them instant personalized results based on their answers. Your audience gets to know where they are now and shows them the steps they need to hit their goals. You can set up a quiz in minutes using Score App's templates and have a powerful lead magnet that'll do the selling for you. The best part is your audience actually wants to take this quiz, and you build huge amounts of trust before you even make a single offer. No hard sales, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. Just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI. Hey there, quick pause here because I have to tell you about a tool that completely transforms the podcasting workflow. Riverside. I get it. I used to juggle multiple platforms just to record one podcast episode. It was exhausting. Zoom for recording, Audacity for editing, and then a bunch of different apps just to create clips and social posts. I've tried other ones as well. They were okay, but they were clunky and super time consuming. That's where Riverside has massively helped. I can do it all in one place: recording, editing, repurposing, one platform, one streamlined flow. I just log in, record with my guests no matter where they are in the world, and just like that, studio quality audio and high resolution video all in one. And get this, even if your Wi-Fi glitches, Riverside records locally on your device so everything sounds and looks crystal clear. But here's my favorite feature: Riverside's AI editing tool. You can remove silences and filler words with just one click. Hours saved. With Magic Clips, Riverside also automatically finds the best moments and turns them into ready-to-post videos for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, all without the extra editing. So if you're looking to level up your production quality and simplify your workflow, go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART. It's built by creators for creators, and I think you're going to love it.